Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Brian from Zombie Guitar here. Today I'm going over part 2 of the chord tone soloing series. Okay, so part 1 I went over basically how to play, how to start to target, chord shapes right here in your home box, you could call it. So you have your basic pentatonic. Okay, so your basic pentatonic scale, but instead of thinking scales, now we're thinking chords. Okay, so if you haven't watched that video, go back and watch that to get an introduction to what this whole series is about. But anyway, in this video we're still going to be using the same chord progression. We're going to be going from the C major to the G major to the D major to the E minor. Okay, and instead of working in that basic pentatonic position rooted on the E string, we're going to now be in this pentatonic position, starting on with the root on the A string. Okay, so that pentatonic looks like this. Okay, so that's your I call that the A string home box, because those are two very common areas. When I'm thinking pentatonic and when I'm kind of soloing in an unfamiliar key, I tend to find my home box area, and then I tend to also go to the, where the root is on the A string. So that's my other, one of my favorite spots to solo in when I'm kind of stuck for, when I'm not completely familiar with the key. Anyway, so we're in this area here, and okay, so we're going to locate our chord shapes. So you have your C major chord here. Okay, so that would be the C in the E shape, okay? Okay, and then you have your G major chord right here. Okay, then you have your D major chord, but that's in the G shape. Okay, then you have your E minor chord right here on the 7th fret of the A string, and this is just your basic minor chord shape rooted on an A string. Okay, but as far as lead purposes go, you don't necessarily have to play these whole chords exactly like that. Some tricks that I've learned is just playing on the high 4 strings. Okay, so you take your C major chord, for example. Instead of playing this chord, you can just kind of play the high 4 strings of it. Okay, so there's your chord tones for when the C major chord is occurring. Okay, stuff like that. And then when you move to the G major chord, okay, so anytime a chord moves by a fifth, okay, so you're going from the C major to the G major, which is a movement of a fifth. If you look in your circle of fifths, C to G is a movement of a fifth. So anytime there's a movement of a fifth, and you're playing in this shape here, you can always just slide down a fret and kind of switch your fingers around like this. Okay, so that's always going to be that movement of a fifth, C to G. Okay, so you're just playing on the high 4 strings here. So you have your C major chord and all your available chord tones. Okay, then you have your G major and all your available chord tones just by doing that little movement. Okay, and now sticking to just the high 4 strings again, you can go to your D major chord, and this is another movement of a fifth. Okay, so anytime you're starting with this shape, and you move a fifth, so you're going from G, now moving to the D, which is another movement of a fifth, you're basically going like this. Okay, so you're going to get used, if you're not used to this already, or if this is new to you, you're going to get used to these simple movements. Okay, the whole point of this chord tone soloing is to kind of help you out and make this stuff simple without having to think these full crazy weird chord shapes, So you have your C to your G to your D. Alright, and, you know, again, that's movements of a fifth, okay? So you're going from the G to the D. G to the D. Alright, and then you're ending on that basic minor chord shape, which I'm sure you already know. Okay, and one thing to note is when you're on the when you're on the minor chord, which is actually the key that you're playing in. Okay, so again, like I went over in the first video, and you know, if you've made it this far, I'm sure you already know you're in the key of E minor or G major. They're relative to one another. Okay, so once you're at the E minor chord, that's often a good time where you can actually just go full on pentatonic and do your just whatever pentatonic licks you happen to have in your arsenal that you always just go to, because they always work. Pentatonic always seems to work. That will always work best over the minor chord. Okay, not that it won't work over other chords. You know, you can always go full on pentatonic, but again, the whole purpose of this chord tone soloing series is to get you to break out of that pentatonic rut. The intermediate level of playing where you kind of want to, you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, so that's that. So that's this position, okay? So instead of thinking, okay, E minor scale in this position, or G major scale in that position, whatever way you want to look at it, instead of thinking scale, don't think about that anymore. Now you can think, okay, C chord, and then you recognize the movement from the C to the G, which is common in guitar playing, the movement of a fifth. Okay, and then a movement of a G to a D, also very common in, guitar playing, which is another movement of a fifth. Alright, and then, you're going to your minor chord, E minor chord. Alright, and again, you don't have to play these chords. These are just your chord tones available in soloing. So right now I'm just going to give you, simple little music example of how, you can work these chords into your soloing over my looped progression, which sounds like this. Okay, so that's my looped progression. Let's hear how this chord tone stuff sounds. Okay, something like that. So I'm kind of hitting all chord tones here. Okay, so normally, when you're soloing or something like that, you're not going to only hit chord tones. You're also allowed to use your ear if whatever you can do whatever you want. It's music, but you're allowed to use your ear and hit non-chord tones when the chord's occurring and stuff like that, because other non-chord tones sound great. It makes your soloing sound good. But the purpose of this stuff is you want to have control over it. Okay, so you want to get good at practicing hitting chord tones. So if you want to hit a chord tone, you can, or if you want to hit a non-chord tone, you can do that as well. Okay, so as we move through this chord tone soloing series, you're going to see that certain non-chord tones sound better than other non-chord tones, but such as ninths and whatnot. But that's for future lessons anyway. But the purpose of this lesson, part 2, is just to get comfortable with the most common chords in the key, which are the 1, 4, 5 chords, and then the minor 6 chord. in this position right here, okay? So you now have your home box position, the basic pentatonic position that everyone knows, and then you have your pentatonic position rooted on the A string here with those same 4 chords down there, okay? So that's going to be it for part 2 here. Stay tuned for part 3. Thanks a lot.